Mixon out of the backfield. Has some daylight. Hurdles to the end zone. In for the score, and he took a lick from Miles Jack, but he hung on.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today we are going to be previewing the Bengals and Colts game. And I had to bring on a special guest, none other. You guys know I like to get the best guys from the other team, and this guy, his resume speaks for itself. I have tonight with me Kevin Bowen, a Colts Media specialist. He's the host of the Kev's Corners Colts podcast. Kevin, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing great, Ace. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, for sure. So one thing that I always ask analysts and stuff of other teams when they come on is, how did they get into their current position? So as a Colts media specialist, you wear several hats over there. How did you really get into covering the Colts?
Yeah, well, I grew up just north of Indianapolis, so I've always been in this market. I went to Indiana University in Bloomington, which is just about an hour south of Indy as well. So certainly have been very invested in Colts Pacers coverage, more so as a fan, certainly growing up, but then transitioned over to the media world, if you will, in 2012. Actually wrote for Colts.com from 2012 to 2017, and then moved over to what happens to be the flagship radio station for Colts football called 107.5 The Fan. And I mainly cover the Colts, do some Pacers coverage as well, but write and, like you said, have a podcast and do some on-air. I'm kind of the bullpen fill-in person, from a hosting standpoint on our station. So I love it. You know how passionate NFL fan bases are, and I love pumping out content for people.
Right. So going into this game, I have questions primarily about the Colts. We've talked about the Colts defense on another YouTube channel that I sit on, which is AFC North Talk. Obviously, you faced the Browns and some other teams, and we had a debate because obviously right now the media is saying that the Colts had, before this game, before the Browns game, the number one defense. And one thing that I think that I saw was when I looked at the opponents, I was like, well, is it that they played against weaker offenses, or is it that they are a legit defense? And I kind of heard some of your thoughts on it, but if you could explain your explanation, is this Colts defense legit? Is it that they played weak offenses, or what is, I guess, your opinion of the Colts defense so far this season?
Yeah, it's certainly an improved unit. Last year, it really struggled, mainly against the pass and getting after the quarterback. Late in the year, really wilted when they had a few injuries in the secondary. They went out, they traded for DeForest Buckner, big addition at defensive tackle. And their run defense has been outstanding. I don't care who the opponent. Last week against the Browns, number one rushing offense in the NFL, and I think they held them to barely over 2 per carry. Might have been under 2 in the first half as well. So their run defense has been very legit under Matt Eberflus, their coordinator, for all 3 years he's been here. I still have reservations, though, about the passing defense in general. Their 2 losses, they've been exposed. Week 1, Gardner Minshew, 19 of 20 in that game. Just way too easy of a dink and dunk day. The Colts are more of a zone concept team. They are not nearly as aggressive as the Bengals are from a coverage standpoint. Now, they made some adjustments week 2, 3, and 4, and they were historically good. I mean, numbers you haven't seen. I mean, I think 7 interceptions in those 3 weeks, a couple pick sixes, had 2 safeties, I want to say, held Minnesota and the Jets in Chicago all to under, I want to say, 11 points in each of those 3 games. But you know full well, Ace, those are not juggernaut offenses. Cleveland, I think, is the best barometer they've faced from an offensive standpoint. And Cleveland shredded them last week in the first half, even though the Colts could not get to Baker Mayfield. 4-man rush, 3-man rush. They don't like to blitz a lot. And they got torched in the first half. Cleveland had 4 offensive drives, all over 65 yards. All scoring drives, and the Colts are down 20-10 at half, and you get down 20-10, this team's just not built to come back. So I think it's an improved defense, but I still am concerned about when you play legit offenses, how well can you hold up?
Definitely, for sure. So the next big trending topic right now, based off of the last game and the slow start to the season, is about Phillip Rivers, right? A lot of people somewhat felt that he may have been on the downside of his career after a down year with the Chargers, and obviously the Colts went out and grabbed him. I've heard some whispers of possibly moving away from him and going to another position. What is the quarterback situation like in Indianapolis right now?
Yeah, it's certainly top of mind for every fan. Phillip Rivers, after week 3, led the NFL percentage. I want to say he was top 10 in yards per attempt, really important metrics for Frank Reich. And yet I have gotten probably 150 people messaging me saying he should be benched for Jacoby Brissett since Sunday's game.
Right.
Was good in the first half. They were down 20-10 at half, like I mentioned. He was 8 of 11 for 120, led 2 scoring drives out of 3. But that arm strength laterally, we're talking outside the numbers throws. When he can step up in the pocket and it's a clean pocket, he can still throw it vertically. He's not Josh Allen or some gunslinger back there, but he can make throws vertically. But if you pressure him, collapse that pocket, it loses its width, even loses its depth, he gets exposed. And you put him in obvious passing situations, and this is not a passing attack that can come from behind. He has not gotten help from the run game. It was a historically good run game last season. They have not. I think they're 31st in the NFL in yards per carry, which with this offensive line is not acceptable, really. And then from a weapon standpoint, they're number 2 and 3 wide out. Paris Campbell, Michael Pittman, both hurt. Both will not play in this game. T.Y. Hilton, is he on the back 9 of his career? Yes. He has not played like the Pro Bowl wide out that he used to be. And even their tight end group hasn't given them enough. So certainly Rivers, again, when he gets behind the chains, gets into obvious passing situations, when you muddy that pocket, it can get ugly. And I mean, really ugly. He'll throw some balls that'll give you chances to not only make turnovers, but take it to the house.
Oh, wow.
But if you can stay ahead of the change, if you're the Colts, support him with a rushing attack, play from ahead, he can be a very quick rhythm quarterback and get into a nice rhythm, which he showed in those wins. So I think it's a very turmoil situation, though, right now. Again, a lot of people want him benched. He's not going to be benched. This is a 1-year contract, the long-term answer, who knows? But yeah, right now, this is probably one of the more tenuous quarterback situations, at least the Colts have faced in quite some time, considering they gave him $25 million in the offseason.
Right, correct. So another big star for the Colts, everyone is familiar with, is Darius Leonard, but it seems like he's had some injuries this season. What are your thoughts on Darius Leonard coming into this game? Do you feel like he will play in this game? And if he does, what kind of impact will he have?
Well, he didn't practice today, so now that's 4 straight days of missed practices. It's a groin injury. You always worry about soft tissue stuff with a guy whose game is predicated on speed. And the Colts do have their bye week next week. So it is one of those things where it's like, all right, if you can get through this week, maybe you get that extra week with the bye. The thing about Leonard this year, he hasn't made the splash plays, and that's his game. I mean, again, he's put up, and I don't say this lightly, Hall of Fame numbers through his first 2 seasons in taking the ball away, creating pressure, all that stuff. No sacks, I think 2 tackles for loss, no forced turnovers through the first 4 games, and he was healthy. Their linebacker group is probably one of the deeper positions on the team. So Anthony Walker, Bobby Okereke, 2 guys that filled in last week, did a really nice job. So I don't think it's as big of a loss as like Anthony Costanzo, their left tackle, who didn't play last week. He was back at practice today. In my opinion, he's their most important player. Myles Garrett wrecked that game last week when he was out. So right now, I'd probably say no on Leonard, but Thursday's practice will be the big thing.
So you kind of talked about Anthony Cosenza, is that his name, or Costanzo?
Yep.
Costanzo. What about the rest of the offensive line? Like, what is that looking like? Obviously, you said they definitely needed him against Myles Garrett, and him being out impacted the line. Obviously, I know something about offensive lines with the Bengals currently this year. What does that Colts offensive line look like?
Yeah, it's probably the offensive line that has the most draft capital invested into it, I would say, of any in the NFL. Costanzo, top 25 pick. Quentin Nelson at left guard, 6 overall. Ryan Kelly at center, 18th overall. Their right guard was a 4th-round pick, and their right tackle was the 37th overall pick, Braden Smith. So it's a lot of draft capital, big-time resources invested in that group. Last week was their first game they didn't all start together since the end of the 2018 season. They had unbelievable continuity for, a year plus, and really were one of the better units in the NFL. But like I said, it's probably the most disappointing aspect of the season for me so far. That rushing yard per carry, 31st in the NFL. The pass protection really broke down last week without AC in the lineup. So it's a group that for this team to get anywhere, and that's, month of January, win a game in January, whatever expectations are, they've got to be elite, and they haven't been elite this season. The expectations are really high, and that's just when you have 4 guys taking the top 40, you expect them to be a top 5 unit in the league, and they haven't lived up to that so far. And like I was saying earlier, Phillip Rivers is a statue. I mean, he's not making plays with his feet, so your O-line has got to be pristine to keep him clean, keep him healthy if this offense is going to do something.
For sure, for sure. So one parallel that we kind of have is obviously you guys drafted Andrew Luck. I think right now we may have maybe the most heralded quarterback coming out of the draft since him. But obviously he kind of took a beating early on. And that's why you guys, like you said, invested so much in the offensive line. The Bengals find themselves in a very similar situation. I always hear Bengals fans saying, we're going to pull an Andrew Luck situation with him where he's going to get beat up. And right now he's on pace right now to get sacked 70 times this season. So from your perspective, can you talk about the importance of what that offensive line has to do when you have a young quarterback like that so you can avoid a situation like Luck where he's getting injuries and getting beat up and battered and bruised, and ultimately it forces him to want to essentially, retire?
Yeah, well, first off, Colts fans will empathize with what you guys are going through right now because that was certainly Luck's early career. And really was his career until Frank Reich came here. And by then it was kind of too late. A couple things stood out. Bruce Arians was the offensive coordinator in 2012, became the interim head coach, Luck's rookie season. He was a steadfast believer in 5 to 7 step drops, and Andrew Luck can take hits. Andrew Luck also wanted to take hits. I'll never forget the story from Mike Sanford, who was one of their assistants at Stanford when Luck was there. And he mentioned how Luck would want a deep ball scripted early in the game because he wanted to take a hit on the deep ball because he felt like he got into the game at that point. Like he was in sync, he was ready to go, which again is such a wild concept, but that's how he was wired. The Colts felt like Ryan Grigson, their general manager, felt like in my history in the league, especially with interior offensive linemen, we can get by with later round draft. And your O-line coach really, really matters. Developing. And that just didn't work out. I mean, the Colts had a revolving door really at every spot besides left tackle. Costanzo's really been the mainstay there since 2012. But it's been a revolving door, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle throughout Luck's tenure. So I think if, they had to do it all over, it was invest better draft capital and hit. They had misses in free agency. They missed on a 3rd rounder in Luck's second year, a 2nd and 3rd rounder is next year. Just right around that area, they just kind of swung and missed in free agency and the draft as well. And then secondly, I think scheme matters a whole lot. And I know just from watching you guys, Joe Burrow is similar to Andrew in that he can make a lot of plays with his legs, and it's a weapon you want to use, but you got to be prudent in using that. So that is something that I feel like from an offensive system play calling standpoint is a big thing to deal with.
Definitely, for sure. So you also talked about the running back situation. Obviously, the loss of Marlon Mack was huge. You've got Jonathan Taylor, who I like, and you kind of have a 3-headed attack going on. I noticed that you guys use all 3 of your running backs. What's that running back room situation looking like? Is it going to be led by Jonathan Taylor now, or is it still going to be kind of a 3-headed monster?
Yeah, it's definitely led by Taylor. They expect a breakout game very soon. He probably had his best game of the season last week against Cleveland. I think 4.5, maybe a little more per carry. Vision questions a little bit with him early on, typical rookie stuff in the NFL. Nyheim Hines is the backup. Think of him kind of like Giovanni Bernard. I mean, just kind of that change of pace guy that comes in the game and can make some plays out of the backfield. And then Jordan Wilkins is their 3rd back, who just is more of a 1st or 2nd down guy, comes in sparingly. But yes, Taylor is. They wanted him to be a home run hitter. That was his game. 4.3, whatever, 8, 40-yard dash to the combine. I want to say his long rush this year is 16 yards. So he just hasn't gotten in the open field in the run game. And that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. He's seeing a lot of 8-man boxes. And to be frank, if I were playing the Colts right now, I'd be loading the box too and try to kind of glue to those wideouts that are outside and, take away the middle of the field and make Rivers beat you that way. So again, they will pound Taylor. Just by looking at the injury report and reading a little bit, it sounds like Cincinnati's banged up on the D-line. So I fully expect the Colts to be committed to the ground game on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. The loss of DJ Rader is definitely going to be immense for sure. So you also kind of talked about the wideout situation. Obviously, Michael Pittman is going down. What does that really look like from this standpoint? Is it going to be kind of what we saw against Cleveland, or do you see anything kind of improving in that area?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be the same group that you saw against Cleveland. Paris Campbell will probably be out for the year, if not until December. Michael Pittman is going to be out through the bye week, which is next week for the Colts. So it's T.Y. Hilton and Zach Pascal, and it's Marcus Johnson. So it's not a group that probably the common fan knows a whole lot about. They don't wow you by any means. They haven't done a whole lot after the catch this year. They haven't done a whole lot in the red zone. The Colts are one of the worst red zone teams in the NFL this season. That's probably been the biggest issue offensively is their situational football. So again, wideout-wise, they don't scare you too much. They would like to involve their tight ends. They've got 3 of them, Mo Alley-Cox, Jack Doyle, and Trey Burton that they all like to use. But, yeah, this is not an explosive offense on the outside by any means in the passing game. Yes, Rivers has hit a few chunks vertically, but still, I would not call this a high-powered air attack. It's an offense that wants to rely on the ground game and play action pass off it.
For sure, for sure. So you kind of mentioned you guys having some guys that not too many people may be familiar with. Are there any under-the-radar players that you would say on offense or defense that the Bengals fans should be looking out for?
Boy, that's a good question. Offensively, I feel like I've kind of ran through pretty much everybody. Mo Alley-Cox is a big tight end, former college basketball player who actually, I don't know if he still does, but he was leading the team in receiving yards. Really quiet last week. 1 target, no catches. He didn't practice today with a knee injury. He can be a weapon, especially in the red zone. Had over 100 yards against the Vikings, so he's a name to watch. Defensively, I don't know how much I guess 2 names stick out in the secondary. Julian Blackmon, a rookie safety out of Utah, tore his ACL in the Pac-12 title game. He is starting in place of Malik Hooker, who tore his Achilles back in week 2. Blackmon has been a ball hawk, very productive. He had a groin injury against Cleveland, didn't practice today, so that's somebody to watch. And then out of the nickel, I think one of the more underrated players in the league is Kenny Moore. Small corner, number 23, a very sure tackler, really one of the better slot corners in the league, good in coverage as well. So he would be another kind of under-the-radar guy to watch.
Yeah, appreciate that. So before I toss it back to me to see if you have any questions, do you have any kind of score prediction or any kind of prediction for this game on how you see it going?
Yeah, I think I saw the line was 7.5 last I looked. I will go with the Colts 27-17. I don't say that really confident, but looking at the injuries to Cincinnati up front and knowing the Colts are getting Costanzo back, I just think there's going to be a heavy emphasis on establishing the run. They've played really well at home this year for what it's worth. But I think that'll come into play as well. And if they can, I think a huge key is just making sure Mixon doesn't do anything crazy. If they can, take away Mixon and get into some obvious passing situations, it seems like Cincinnati's really struggled in protecting Burrow. The Colts haven't done great against mobile quarterbacks this year, so that is something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I'm going to go 27-17 Colts.
No, that's a good prediction for sure. Do you have any questions for me in terms of like the Bengals or any questions from our standpoint?
Yeah, I'm curious about T. Higgins. I know the Colts really liked him. They ended up taking Pittman right after T. Higgins. I'm kind of curious if Cincinnati wouldn't have taken T. Higgins, the Colts might have taken him. So it seems like he's kind of emerged as the new number 1.
Yeah, I think T. Higgins definitely has emerged for sure. I would probably say right now most Bengals fans would consider Tyler Boyd kind of the number 1 because he's kind of been under the radar, but he's quietly been like the most consistent player. But I think T. Higgins is really, like you said, emerging as that second guy, especially with A.J. Green just not really clicking right now in this offense. I think you've seen him kind of take a little bit of a backseat, and it's kind of weird because initially the first game, T didn't really get too many plays. Like they had Auden Tate and stuff out there. And I remember seeing his mom on Twitter say, like, if you throw my son the ball, he's going to catch it. And they finally started getting him in there. I think it was about week 2, week 3. And as soon as he came in, he was out there making plays. So I definitely think, like you said, he is for sure ascending and becoming potentially the next option in this offense for sure. So I think either way you guys would have gone for sure would have definitely have worked out, because I was a fan of Pittman as well. But T. Higgins definitely really caught on, especially when he had that game where he had the 2 touchdowns, and he's just really been building on that. He did have some time where he was injured for a little bit and he wasn't able to get reps with Joe, but now it seems like they are definitely getting on the same page for sure.
Okay, well, I'll flip over to the other side of the ball then. I think I know a decent amount about the D-line, but just kind of summarize how the linebackers and secondary have played.
So the secondary, it's been very consistent in terms of the secondary. When you look at Jesse Bates, I think that he's very underrated in this league. He's playing like he's one of the top safeties in the league right now. Now, opposite him, we've had Von Bell, and he's really just played kind of average. Like, you haven't noticed him make any bad plays, but you haven't noticed him make any good plays either. So you're getting average play there. I think you're getting elite play from Jesse Bates. William Jackson III has really been and established himself as an elite corner, I think, this year. Now, he will give up some plays, but for the most part, he's really been at the top of his game that kind of matched what he did in 2017. Outside of that, though, that's when you kind of get question marks, because you have Darius Phillips, who has flashed at points and has played solid. And then you also get into LaShawn Sims, where he's been kind of up and down. But the thing is, it seems like Mackenzie Alexander will be coming back this week as he returned to practice. He usually plays in a slot. He has been very solid. So the secondary overall has really been solid, a lot better than they were last season. They haven't given up too many big plays. They did give up some plays in that Eagles game, but outside of that, they've really been a really consistent unit. So they are strong. In terms of the linebackers, it's a mixed bag. I would probably say that Logan Wilson, to me, is like head and shoulders probably the best guy there. And he's a rookie, but he's really taken some steps there. You've got Jermaine Pratt, who's kind of up and down. And then you also have Josh Bynes, the veteran, who's also up and down. So I would probably say that they're better than they were last season, which is an extremely low bar because they were probably the worst linebacking core in the NFL. But now I'd probably say with Logan Wilson, it probably makes them about average. They also have Akeem Davis-Gaither. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife kind of guy that they like to blitz and do certain things with. He's been up and down as well. But I think outside of Logan Wilson, he's probably your best linebacker, and that they are probably, I'd probably say that they're about average. I think the defensive line in terms of the interior has had issues all season, as you know, with injuries. And now we have an even bigger injury with DJ Reader, who was really good against the run. So that's how I would essentially rank our defense.
And what's score prediction, if I could put you on the spot?
Oh, man. If you would have caught me last week, I thought that we were going to drop 30 on the Ravens. Obviously, that did not happen. With this defense, one thing that stuck out to me, I don't know if your defensive coordinator will look at what the Ravens did, but it seems that the Ravens have uncovered the way to disrupt this offense is the blitz. Now, I noticed that you said that you guys don't blitz as much, but if you throw some blitzes in there, I think you could definitely get to us. But Joe Burrow, up until the last game, was really playing amazing, was not playing like a rookie at all. But after that game, it's hard for me to say because this offensive line is so bad that it can really wreck any game, especially coming against a defense like you guys. So I would probably say, if you're putting me on the spot, I would say the Bengals. They're gonna call me not a fan if I don't pick the Bengals. So I'm gonna say the Bengals 24. I'm gonna say the Colts 21.
There we go. A little upset. I will say the Colts have, in these games where they're favored by over a touchdown, lost to Jacksonville earlier this year, lost to Miami at home last year, got shut out by Jacksonville the year before. They do kind of play to their competition in some of these games. So that'll be something to keep an eye on.
I am not confident in that, but the only thing that will help us is if Phillip Rivers goes out and plays and gives us the ball and opportunities, then maybe. But honestly, I'm worried about this one because I think the Cincinnati season is pretty much over if we lose against the Colts, especially with this coaching staff, everything that's going on, the drama with AJ Green, some of these players, Carlos Dunlap. I think that would really kill the confidence of this team. But Kevin, thank you for joining me. Before you get out of here, please let Bengals fans and just listeners of the show know where they can find your stuff and where they can follow you at.
Yeah, thanks. K Bowen 1070 on Twitter. You can follow me there. Kevin's Corner is my podcast that Ace mentioned earlier. We just posted our last podcast of the week about an hour or two ago, so we'll kind of get more into where the state of the Colts, if you will, entering week 6. And then, if you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message on Twitter or something like that. And looking forward to Sunday.
Definitely looking forward to Sunday. Once again, thanks for the time. This is Kevin Bowen. Please be sure to check out his stuff. Please be sure to listen to his podcast, Kevin's Corner. Very impressive. Listen to it today. This guy knows his stuff when it comes to the Colts. This has been New Stripe City, a podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. And as usual, we'll leave you with a who day all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.